Bad news, Breakfast fans. The video for our Charlie Says review didn't come through. So we do have the audio. We're going to share it with you right now so you get this review here on YouTube. But you don't get our smiling faces. Sorry about that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to What the Flick. Christy, Matt, Alonso. So we're talking about Charlie Says, which is now streaming. It opened a week ago theatrically, and it's still on some screens, but now you can get it, iTunes, Amazon, all those places. I'm not giving it a score because I am old friends with screenwriter Guinevere Turner, who is reteaming with Mary Harron. They previously gave us American Psycho and The Notorious Betty Page. And this is a movie about three of the women who we've come to know as the Manson girls.
Continue. Tell us more.
Oh, sure. Okay. So the movie has kind of a flashback structure. It's after the murders, and they're not on death row, but they're sort of being put on death row just to be taken out of general pop in a women's prison, is Leslie Van Houten and... Do you have it in front of you?
I don't.
Sorry. Anyway...
They're known as Katie, Sadie, and Lulu in the Manson world.
Those are the names that Charlie gave them.
They're played by Sosie Bacon, Hannah Murray, and Marianne Rendón.
Yes. And Merritt Weaver, actress I'm a big fan of.
She's always good.
Yes. Plays a woman who teaches courses inside the prison, and she is brought by the warden, who's played by Annabeth Gish, to offer classes to these women. And basically figures out that they have been brainwashed by Charles Manson. Everything they say is, well, Charlie says, da-da-da, Charlie says, Charlie says, Charlie says. And so she has to begin the process of making them think for themselves again. And what's interesting about this film is, in your traditional cult deprogramming movie like Ticket to Heaven or...
Martha, Marcy May, Marlene,
Blinded by the Light, the deprogramming is the sort of end in and of itself. And if the person can shake off the cult leader's brainwashing and begin to regain their agency, then that's considered a win. But for this movie, we come to understand that if these women do break free of being under the Manson spell, they are going to have to own up to their role in these brutal murders and the fact that they willingly participated in them. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. And I think that unlike most depictions of the Manson family, Charles Manson kind of comes off as the sort of like creep with delusions of grandeur that he was, and this is a movie that's really sympathetic about the women's story.
Yeah, it's a very different depiction of Charles Manson or of a cult leader in general, because you see him for being, preening and petty and capricious and abusive and just kind of a douche.
I was reminded of the cult leader in Mandy.
Oh, right. Yes. That's a good analogy. And so you can see why...
Who I'm sure was based on Manson.
Right. You can see why these women are drawn to him at this particular point in American history.
Sure.
But the film sees him for who he really is and sees him for his weaknesses and for his flaws and does not mythologize him the way it would be easy to do. And I like that approach. It's a very different approach to him.
Yeah. Matt Smith, who was really... gained famous playing Doctor Who, playing the Doctor in Doctor Who.
Has recently played Lord Mountbatten on The Crown and Maplethorpe in Maplethorpe.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, I thought he was really good in this. He brings a lot of charm, and he does show you kind of that charming side of Manson. And one of the things one of the girls and the teacher says at one point, and Merritt Weaver talks about, like, they kind of share that 1969 was that time where everyone thought something was going to change.
Yeah.
And so the movie kind of does a good job of kind of putting those events within context. And so against that backdrop, you kind of understand the appeal of a Manson, even though we can see that he's a dick. And especially as the movie goes on, and as, especially like as he wants to try and get his recording contract, and then that seems to fall through, and he starts to turn into like this abusive, father figure. Like you see, okay, right. Early on in the movie, he's a little bit more charming, and then it kind of tilts into being even meaner. I liked a lot of this. I think the actors put in terrific performances. Hannah Murray, who was in
She was on Game of Thrones.
She's on Game of Thrones, but what was the movie, the musical that she was in? Where now I can't remember it. Not Sing Street, but
no, I know which one you're talking
Right.
about. Hang on.
yeah.
No one's ready.
Anyway,
God help the girl.
God help the girl.
That was the
Right.
Belle and Sebastian movie.
Yeah, she's really good in this. I like Sosie Bacon in this. And it does bring up the interesting point of like, well, if we get them to really kind of break out of this, what's it actually doing to them? Which is a legit question. I was intrigued by, I didn't love this movie, but I thought it had a lot going for it. I think a lot of really on the strength of the performances, but some of the questions, I don't know that it necessarily grabs me emotionally. It was more of an intellectual exercise.
I don't know. I think it succeeds at what it sets out to do, which is basically like, how do we tell this story without being gross and exploitative, and let the women sort of speak for themselves, and that we can understand how they got themselves into this situation and then what they did to sort of eventually get out of that situation, at least on a mental level, as when they were behind bars. I'm sure we're not going to get either of those things from the Tarantino movie that comes out later this year.
Oh, right. It's also very evocative of the sense of place and time in Los Angeles. It has kind of the hazy glow of a movie that might have been made during that period without going full tilt parody of late 60s cinema.
Right,
Also,
that hazy glow comes from the smog. Let's remember.
And the dust blowing around at the
Right.
ranch that they have taken over. And also, when I mentioned Kaylee Carter is really great casting as Squeaky Fromme. She looks so much like her. She was in, why am I blanking on it, with Catherine Hahn, which we loved so much.
None
Where she's
of
the
us are ready.
The Paul Giamatti movie.
She's the surrogate. Oh my God! What? Why?
We're dead. Private Life.
Private Life. She was so good in that as like the perky surrogate for Catherine Hahn and Paul Giamatti. Here she is Squeaky Fromme and plays her as kind of like a lovely fairy sprite who will then go on and try to kill the president. Yay! So I liked it. I didn't love it, but as you say, it's an interesting exercise, and I like the ambition of telling the story that we all know from a different angle. That is good. So I'm saying 6.8.
What did I give it as?
6.5.
6.5. Yeah, I mean, I'm not mad I saw it. It's all right.
Alonso's not going to give it a number. So our number is a 6.7. It's at 50% on the tomato meter, and I think it's better than that.
Yes. And tune into Linoleum Night this weekend, where we'll be interviewing Guinevere Turner.
Oh, is she going to come on and talk about the film? Oh,
Yes.
okay, good.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
She's actually currently on Switchblade Sisters, too, and it's a really good episode because Switchblade Sisters is a podcast, if you have not been listening to, April Wolf has been doing. She's about to take a hiatus, but she talks to women.
Katie
Walsh?
Katie Walsh. Yeah, Katie Walsh is taking it over.
Katie Wolf. Katie Walsh will be taking over. Yeah, but it's a show where they talk to women in the industry about filmmaking and craft, and each guest brings a favorite genre film they talk about. So April talks to Guinevere about An American Werewolf in London.
Oh, neat.
So it's a cool episode. Check that out. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like this video. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. Follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And check out patreon.com/BeFastAllDay for subscriber-exclusive content, including Game of Thrones recaps. We have Ben Mankiewicz back this week. And Fosse Verdon and lots of other stuff. Check it out. Thanks for watching.
And on Monday, you get my latest a la carte interview with somebody who I promise you has the greatest how do we know each other story of anybody I've had on yet, of anybody I will ever have on. It is very special. His name is JP Menu, and he's an actor and a comedian. He was on Veep for a while. He's on ER for a while. He's done a million guest spots and recurring roles. He's one of those guys, kind of like Stephen Tobolowsky.
Right.
And I'm not even going to begin to spoil how I know him, but it's a great story.
Was it in the grotto at the Playboy Mansion?
It's not that sexy.
Okay.
But tune in on Monday because that will be out, and it was a fun interview with him. He has lots of good audition stories, and he's just a funny guy in general. So
Thanks for listening. Have a lovely weekend.
Thanks.